It is such an honor to be here. So happy that I got the opportunity to come and speak to you guys today. I think the goal of everyone is for me to come and kind of just give y'all some tools on how to work with your kids at home, and just different types of things that you can do. But one thing I want to start off by doing is, how many parents do we have here? Can you raise your hand if you have a child with special needs? Okay. First thing I want to tell you, and I believe God wants you to know, is that you're doing an amazing job. No matter what, no matter what struggles you go through, no matter, what your days look like, you are doing an amazing job. And God wants you to know that. God wants you to know that He sees every single one of your struggles. He sees everything that you're going through. And He has specifically equipped you for this. So don't give up. One of the things that I definitely want to encourage you is, your children, you may not see gifts and talents like, neurotypical kids have. They may not have those gifts, but your child has a spiritual gift. And that's one thing that God gives all of us, is spiritual gifts. And He did not leave out your kids. So just be encouraged that God sees what you're doing. And if you're here, it means that, you want to do better. You want to do more for your children. And He sees that. And He's going to bless every single one of your efforts. And He sees everything that you're doing. So don't give up. Even though it may seem like your days are long and it's hard, but I guarantee you things get better. I've seen so many of my kids struggle, and I've seen parents come through weary and tired, but I've seen the other side. I've seen where kids make these amazing turnarounds, that God does miracles, and He's still in the miracle working business. And whatever it is that you're struggling with, He's going to provide the means and the ways to help you through that. So I just want to encourage you with that. But I do want to, I guess if you guys want to start the slideshow. Again, my whole goal for coming out here is to be able to equip you with some tools, and just things that we've learned along the way, to be able to help you. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And it would help if I go to the next. So my goal today is, one, to give you tips for success. I want to talk to you about schedules. If you guys don't already have schedules for your kids, I kind of want to talk to you about that, what that would look like. I want to talk to you about social stories. If you're familiar with them, if not, I want to kind of go over that with you and explain what it looks like and how to create them. And then I want to talk to you about rewards and token boards. So I have these here. I believe you could probably get with Justine if you, I'm going to leave some with her. So if it's something that you guys are interested in, want to use, I can make sure that you get them from her. Okay, the next slide. Okay, so these are some tips that I've learned over the years through my parents, and just through the things that I've seen our kids go through, and the successes that I've seen. First of all, my advice is to learn all you can about your child's special needs or diagnosis. Educate yourself. That's going to be very, very important. Educate yourself on what the type of diagnosis, educate yourself on, and I'm not, we believe, that God can do miracles, right? We believe that, we don't know what God's plans are, but we know they're good. And I'm not saying like just stick with what the doctors tell you. We have to use wisdom, right? And God created doctors for a reason. But use wisdom as well. But learn everything that you possibly can about your child's diagnosis. There's so much information out there now. And so don't settle in, the behaviors. Don't settle on what your child's not doing. Just focus on what their diagnosis is, kind of, and educate yourself around that. Second thing is really important. Imagine goals and dreams for your child and talk about them with others who know your child. That's really, really important. One, you're speaking words of affirmation over your kids. One of the things that the pastor that created this program, he was a children's pastor at the time, and at the age of 2, his son was diagnosed with autism. And he struggled. Here's this pastor, and he had a very intimate conversation with God one day, and because his son was 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, still wasn't potty trained. He had lost all his speech, and they were struggling. They were really, really struggling with him with behaviors, and he had this conversation with God about, we just don't know what to do. And God literally, he said, I heard him say, because you're looking at everything that's wrong with your child. You're not looking at what's right. And he told them on that day, his son's name is Connor. Connor is 21 now. This was when he was about 4 or 5. He said, I'm going to use your son to reach millions of people. And my pastor's like, he can't even ask for a drink of water. How is he going to reach millions of people? And he said he heard the Lord clearly say, do you trust me? Do you trust me? And he's like, Lord, you're all I have. Yes, I trust you. So after that conversation, he really felt like, okay, things are going to get better. And, of course, there's an enemy out there, right? Things actually got worse. And so it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks after that. And, again, Connor was not verbal. And one day he came home and, his wife said, Craig, you got to come upstairs. You got to come upstairs. You got to see this. And he's like, well, what's going on? And so his wife's like, Connor, tell Daddy. And, and he just started. Every week before our service, we say a declaration of faith. And Connor's first words was, this is my Bible. It is what it says it is. It says what it says it has. Now, I don't even know it. I am what it says I am. I can do what it says I can do. I've been created. Anyways, it was a whole paragraph. Those were his first words. Those was his first words. So, and then, of course, our pastor heard that story. And then he asked, do you mind if I talk about it in service? So he said, of course. So he actually had Connor come on stage and declare those words, in front of the cameras. And that show got aired all over the world, and it's still being played today. So God's word was true. Connor's story not only has impacted the Champions Club program that we have, but his story has reached millions of people now. So, and we now have Champions Clubs. We have over 120 Champions Clubs in 25 countries. So because of Connor and because of that is why we're doing what we're doing. So, it's important that you don't give up and you talk to people about it. Don't feel ashamed. Do not feel like people don't understand you. If they don't, then talk to the people who do. Start with your family, but start speaking those words. Start speaking dreams into your kids, because we know that, our words have power. So it's very important that we do that. Third thing, your child has special abilities and talents. Use your child's abilities to create a plan right for them. Never underestimate your child's ability or potential. That's very important. if if you're able to, see a talent in your child, develop that. If you haven't seen it, start presenting things to them. It could be painting, it could be an instrument, it could be a sport, it could be building something, it could be learning about something. I mean, I have so many of my kids, all my kids in my ministry are my children. So if you hear me say my kids, I have hundreds of them. But I have a child that knows every single thing about trains. I have one that knows everything about fans. He's fascinated with fans. Anything that rotates, he can take one apart and put it back together, probably with his eyes closed. I have teens, believe it or not, when they were young. Actually, they're young adults now. The doctors told them that they would never be able to read or write, probably wouldn't be able to talk. We're not going to be able to accomplish anything. They actually went to college, graduated from college, got an internship, and is driving. And he's still on the spectrum. So don't let the diagnosis define your child. Do not let the diagnosis define your child. Do not put a ceiling on your child, because they can do amazing things. And if you haven't found a talent, start thinking about presenting different things to them so that you can start seeing what is it that interests them. Next one, you know your child best. Set goals your child can reach. And I think in the beginning, especially when you first get that diagnosis, I see a lot of parents kind of shelter their children. And again, they're listening to doctors, right? The doctors are telling, they're not going to be able to do this, they're not going to be able to do that. And so what they stop doing is stop teaching them, because in their mind they can't do it. But what I want to say is, don't stop teaching them. Make chores for them at home. Make them responsible for things. Start small. Let them know, every day this is what you're going to do, and be consistent. Be consistent with them. But set those goals, even if they're small. Start teaching them life skills. How to, get up at a certain time and brush their teeth, put their clothes on, whatever the case may be. But start setting those goals for them. Start, setting that bar high for them. So many parents leave the bar down here because this is what they've been told that's all they can do. And the child's going to stay there until that parent lifts that ceiling, and that child will then be able to learn. The other thing is, keep notes on your child's progress. So once you determine a goal and you set that goal, start working toward it, but start writing it down, because as time progresses, sometimes you forget where the child started. And you get so wrapped up in what's going on, you forget how far the child has gone. So keep notes. Be consistent on that and keep notes, and that will kind of help you. It'll not only will it challenge you, because you'll see, oh, he was here, but now he's here. Okay, now we can work toward this. But you'll also be able to see how far your child has gone. So keep notes. I think that's really, really important. Get the support you need by joining a support group or talking to other parents, friends, and family members that you can trust. Having a strong support system is very, very important. Because what I see is a lot of families isolate themselves because they feel nobody understands them. Especially if you have a child that is on the autism spectrum, you can't see the disability at front. So most parents other parents or other people may think the child hasn't been disciplined, or it's the parent's fault. And so that shame the parents carry with them. So for them, it's better that they don't go to the grocery store. They don't go on vacation. They don't live their normal lives. So having a support group around you that can understand you. The other thing that's important on having a support group is that you kind of get time off. You need that. Even if it's one night a month, whatever you can do, but start building a support team around you that you can leave your child if you need to go to the grocery store or you need to, run an errand, whatever it may be, but start that support group around you. Get family and friends, get them to be around your child. They can understand your child and be able to work with them. That's good, and it's important for y'all because they need you. Your kids need you, and you need to be in a place where you'll be able to give back to them. Include your child in activities with all children, both with or without special needs. That's very, very important. And I refer a lot to kids on the spectrum because they're the ones that struggle more socially. They don't make friends. They don't know how to go up to someone and play. So that's why it's important that as much as you possibly can, have them around other neurotypical kids. One, they get to observe appropriate behavior. They get to see what other kids, and a lot of our kids will mimic that, and that's what you want to do. That's what you want to encourage. So get them around, even if it's, have a play date, with another child, whatever you can do to bring them around. And not only that, but for the other child, it helps them be a little bit more sensitive, to children with disabilities. And then, I think what's also important as a child grows up, he will pick those things up. He will learn. And it may not be, to the extent that we want it to be, but at least it won't be where the child is isolated. So if you're able to, and I know, with siblings, it's also difficult. So if there's any siblings here, I applaud you too, because I know it's hard. Because, brother or sister gets the attention because they need it. And the siblings end up being, a lot of the times, the caregivers. But that's important because their job is also important because they mimic the siblings as well. So that's, again, appropriate behavior that they can observe. Really important. Be sure to look at your whole child. Your child's strengths as well as the areas for which your child needs support and services. So again, not to focus solely on what the child cannot do. Because initially it could be very overwhelming because you're going to get a list of all these things that the child cannot do. But you as a parent know your child and you know your child's strengths and capitalize on those strengths. Do whatever you can to hopefully make those strengths more powerful than what they can't do. But look at the whole child. And then the next one, do not give up when you know you're right. That's another really, really important, especially when you have to go see a doctor and the doctor's telling you he can't do this or this is what's happening. You know your child better than anybody else. You know your child better than anyone else, so don't give up on that. But when you're setting up a plan for your child, also be realistic. You don't set goals that are out of reach for them. Be realistic. I'm not saying that, you don't want to put a ceiling on them, but then you don't want to expect them to do all of this stuff up here. Be realistic. Work within the strength that the child has at that time. As that increases, then you can update, your goals and you can, move things around. But be realistic with where the child is at the moment. As a child grows and progresses, you'll see that those things change. They grow, they learn. And I'm sure if any of you have a child that's on the spectrum, I'm sure you've already realized how intelligent they are. They are highly intelligent. What I like to call them, and I'll give you an example. I have one of my guys. They're twins, and they're 16 now, but I've had them since they were 4. they were the cutest things in the world. And I think probably for the first 2 years, they never stepped a foot on the floor. I carried them the whole time because I just loved them. And so as they got older, I coddled them a lot. You know, I only had them for 2 hours a week, so I think I was allowed to do that. But what I was doing is when it was time to learn, when it's time to do the Bible story, you know, I would give them the lesson, and, you know, they would just put the pencil down. And so I'm like, okay, I just kind of went around and presented it in other ways. And then one day, Mom comes up to me, and she's like, why are you writing their names on the paper? And I'm like, well, because, you know, they can't do it. She's like, yes, they can. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they can write their name. So basically, they manipulated me the entire time. I mean, this went on for months. And so I was like, oh, really? So then the next week they came. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I went in there and I set their names are Emmanuel and Israel. And I was working with Emmanuel. And I was like, okay, write your name. And he gets the pencil and he just puts it down. And I said, Emmanuel, write your name. And he puts it down. I must have gone through it like 4 or 5 times. And then finally, you know, I said, write your name. And I started spelling it, E. And then when he finally realized, like, oh my gosh, she's not giving up, into E-M-M, he wrote the whole thing. And I'm like, this little kid, he figured out. But that's the other thing. They figure out, like, you know what? I can hold out longer than you can. You're going to end up giving up on me. And then that means I get out of having to do what I need to do. And I've learned that over and over and over with these kids. So again, what was I doing? I was putting a ceiling on him. Because based on what I knew, I just felt, you know, I saw that he couldn't do it. I didn't push him to do it, which I should have. And I can tell you, that's when they were about 5 or 6 years old. They're 16 now and still doing the same thing. If a new teacher comes in, and just 2 weeks ago, they were in the classroom with a new teacher, and it was Emmanuel again, and he was sitting there, and I walked in, the teacher's like, he won't do his work. And I'm like, what do you mean he won't do his work? He's like, yeah, he just won't do it. And I went in there, I'm like, Emmanuel, we are not having this conversation again. I said, E, and sure enough, he picks up his pencil because he knows she's not going anywhere. So he wrote out his whole name. He did 3 sheets of activities. Whereas, and then when he finished, the teacher's like, oh my gosh, like, I couldn't get him to do anything. I'm like, yeah, because you gave up on him. And he knew you would, because everybody else has. So you have to be like, it's a waiting game, and you have to be the one that wins, because they are capable of doing it. But had I not walked in the room, then she would have just thought he's incapable of doing it. But they're master manipulators is what I call them. They're brilliant at it. Okay, you can hit the next slide. So now what I want to talk to you guys about visual schedules. You can do the next one also. So how many of y'all know what a visual schedule is? Okay. So what a visual schedule for the rest of y'all is, it's a visual aid, right, that uses words, pictures, and or symbols to help children understand what they expect. There are many different variations of schedules that can be modified to fit their individual needs. I gave 3 examples right here, and I'm going to go over them a little bit more in detail. But what a visual schedule is something obviously visually that they can see that kind of describes what the expectation is for them. Most kids that are on the spectrum, they don't like surprises. They don't like things to be just sprung on them, right? They love structure and consistency. If you have structure and consistency, you probably don't have a lot of meltdowns. You probably don't have a lot of, behaviors, unless you're introducing something new, right? But if you don't have a visual schedule, and you're having difficulties with your child in one way, shape, or form, in maybe in an activity that you want them to do, or something, somewhere that you're going and you need to help them through that, or maybe in the mornings, getting up in the mornings to get ready for school or to get ready to do, what you guys normally do, visual schedules are great for this. I had one parent that I felt she went overboard, but it worked for her. She literally had a visual schedule in every single room. Every room, the kitchen, the living room, bathroom, and the child's bedroom. Because why? Because she was setting up the expectation. She explained, and the child knew. He couldn't get out of it. There's no way that you can say, well, I didn't know. Well, yes, it was on the board. So that was the expectation in the rooms, right? The kitchen, you clean up after yourself, you rinse your dish off, you put it in the dishwasher, all of that. Then what she did, she created other schedules with like times, like the time he would get up. And let's go to the next slide. I'll talk about that one. But if you are not familiar with schedules, I don't expect you to go home tonight and then post schedules all over the rooms. Like, don't do that because it'll probably freak them out. But what you can start off with this is a first then. And this schedule helps individuals understand what's happening now and what will happen next. So it says this is a great first step to start introducing children to schedules. It's simple, and they see the results quickly. So you can use this. I have this in two different slides here. But one, you can start introducing them to they're going to do this first, and it's visually, right? And then you're verbally telling them. So this is what we need you to do first. And if you have something else, usually what people do, the then part is more of the reward, if you want to use it as a reward, or if you need them to do a couple of things. I have this under the reward schedules as well, and I'll explain more about how to use it as a reward schedule, but this is at least to introduce them so that you're not overwhelming them with like 10 things to do. Start with one. Again, consistency and structure. That is going to be key. What you do today needs to be the same thing you do tomorrow and the next and the next and the next. That's how you are going to get the compliance that you need. Because if you start changing things around for them, that creates anxiety, which normally equals a behavior. None of us likes to be surprised, right? We don't like to walk into a room and not know what's happening. And for some people, it does cause them anxiety. That's what happens to them all the time. So the more preparation that you can give them, the better for them. And the response will be a lot quicker. So if you're not familiar or you've never done one, I would start with the first then. You can write it out based on, your child. If your child's a little bit higher functioning, all you need to do is write it out. First we're going to do this, then this. If they're not, or they're younger, you may want to do visual. Take a picture. Or find something in a magazine, print something up, but make it visual, and then I would also put words on it. I know a lot of times, people just do visuals. I like to do the visual and the word because I don't want them to just depend on a visual. I want them to, know what that expectation is. You can go to the next slide. So for instance, this is a morning schedule. It's an example. So this is something that you could do for them. They're going to wake up, they're going to go to the bathroom, it's time to brush their teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast, put their shoes on, get their backpack. Whatever your routine is, write that schedule for them. And this is something that could go in their room. Whatever your routine is, do that for them. And again, you can find pictures on the internet. You can clip pictures out of magazines, whatever you need to do, but put that in their room and then talk about it. If you need to help them through it, then what you do is in the morning when they wake up, you tell them, wake up time, point to the picture. And then especially if you need to help them in the bathroom, or in their morning routine, this is a perfect way. Take the schedule with you. Okay, it's time to go to the bathroom. Okay, now we're brushing our teeth. Show them this is what we're doing. Make sure that they understand that you're following this schedule. But go by their schedule already. I wouldn't say change it around for anything. Whatever they're doing now, go ahead and add it to their schedule so it's something they can visually see. Now, if later on in, a few months, you want to add something to it, it's probably not going to be a big deal. You're probably going to be able to add it in, obviously talk to them about it, but it's not going to be that detrimental, because it's going to be part of their schedule. They're going to understand what the schedule is. They're going to understand what the expectation is. So I would, highly recommend. This also eliminates a lot of the, whatever, like I know a lot of kids have trouble waking up in the morning. I was one of them. I'm not a morning person. And so having to wake up and get ready for school, I understand. I get it. So this at least helps them know that this is what they're going to do. And it's not negotiable, right? They don't get a choice. They have to go to school. It's not, don't let them negotiate themselves out of it. This is what they have to do. And I'll talk about rewards in a minute, but it's important that you have something visual for them to see. The next slide. So this is another example of a daily schedule. So why are schedules important? Routine, structure, and schedules can improve a child and family's sense of well-being. They can improve a child's ability to regulate their own behavior and help them build greater independence and confidence in life skills. So why do we want schedules? Because we want them to be able to be independent. You don't, at 16, 17 years old, you shouldn't have to go into the bathroom with your child. That should have already been built in. But a few years ago, I had a family, their child, he must have been about 10, and mom was still putting his shoes on and tying his shoes. Like that, there's no reason, because that can be built in. That can be a life skill that can be taught at an early age. So in building these schedules, making schedules a part of their lives is how you can introduce it. Once they kind of master something, then you can switch up the schedule a little bit. Eventually the goal is not to have schedules for them. But, as they grow, their schedules are going to change. So, but this is kind of an example of a daily schedule. It's got times on it. It's got what they're going to do. This is, more for an older child. They don't need the pictures anymore. But again, you're setting the expectation. And that's very, very important that, you're able to set that expectation and they understand, what the purpose is, and they understand what you expect of them. Let's see. Can you go over 2 slides? Yeah. Okay, social stories. Anybody know what a social story is? You must work with special needs, right? I figured. Okay, so a social story, it's a simple story that describes a social situation and how they're expected to respond to it. Social stories can be used to teach children about their emotions or upcoming event. You can help them learn skills such as sharing, or teach them on how everyone is different. You can also write social stories to discuss important customs in your home. They're also a great way to prepare them for going on any types of trips. Social stories are meant to help children prepare for events by making them seem less overwhelming. So, when is a social story probably, when do you want to introduce a social story? Usually when you're going to do something different. Let's say you're going on vacation, okay? So there's a lot involved in going on vacation. And one, it's outside of the child's routine. 2, the getting ready for vacation is already stressful for most people. And for that child to see everything that's going on, that's not the norm. So a social story, you have the ability to kind of play out visually what's going to happen. So you can go to the next slide. So these are kind of examples of social stories. You want to explain what you're doing, right? We're going on a trip, okay? First thing we're going to do is we're going to pack. We're going to pack to go on our trip. And you can go as detailed as you want based on your child. You can take pictures of the clothes that they're going to pack, their suitcase. You can be as detailed as you want to be. Or you can be real general. We're going to pack our clothes. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive to the airport. We're going to see lots of planes. We're going to get on this plane. And again, the more information that you can give the child for this change, the better equipped and prepared they're going to be for it. They don't like surprises. Most kids don't like surprises. I mean, I refer back to more kids on the spectrum. But they don't like surprises. So anytime you're going to introduce something different to them, a trip to the zoo, changing schools, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, anything that's outside their normal routine, it's best to create a social story. The other thing that you can do with a social story is that you can kind of take them on like a little dry run of it. Maybe if it's going to the doctor, well, do a little social story. Drive them, park in front of the doctor's office and say, this is what we're going to do next week. Tell them when, where, all of that. Go back home. May have to do it a couple of times just to get them used to it. I had a parent that, and again, this was the parent's fault. And I understand you got to pick your battles, right? You have to pick your battles. But I had a parent that everywhere she went, she had to take the exact same route. Everywhere. Everywhere she went, it had to be the exact same route. So, one, obviously she did it out of necessity because she didn't want a meltdown in the back of her car, which I totally understand. But then, at the same time, you're creating a behavior in a situation that you really don't have a lot of control over. And so I had kind of talked to her about it, but I knew she was very dead set on keeping that schedule. And I told her, what's going to happen if you're not able to do it, and she's like, I just have to. Well, guess what happened one day? There was a road closure. So she had to take a different route, and her daughter had a meltdown because she didn't understand that this was happening. So again, there's certain things that you want to be consistent about, but then there's other things that you don't want it so stringent that it puts you in a box, and it puts you in a position where if something happens, you're not going to be able to change it. I have another one of my guys. He's an adult now, and he picks mom's clothes out. So for every single day and every single situation, he lays mom's clothes out. And so guess what? Mom wears the same clothes every single Sunday because that's her Sunday clothes. And it got to the point, she lives on this huge farm. Like, they have horses, and she said one day somebody from church came and gave her some money so she can go buy clothes because they thought that's all she had to wear. So his name is Jake. So then Jake now expects me to wear the same thing every day for church. So he wants to try to tell me. So and Jake is not verbal, but he has his iPad, and if I, and now I do it on purpose. I do not wear, he expects me to wear black pants, these shoes, and a gray top. That's what he wants me to wear every Sunday. So the entire summer, and it has to be long pants. The entire summer, I did not wear black at all. And I wore crop pants. Oh, he had a fit. He came with his tablet, and he told me, Sunday, clothes, black. So he already had picked out my clothes. And I told him, I said, no, Jake, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. And so now what he does is he gets so upset with me, he comes and he takes pictures of me. And he's just steadily taking pictures of me when I'm out, and his mom laughs at me. He's like, he's going to report you to HR. And I said, yes, he is. I'm out of uniform. But mom does that, and I'm like, I'm not going to let him do that to me, you know, because he needs to understand that it's just not possible. So, and now Jake is like 25, 24 years old and still picking out her clothes. And I get it. You pick your battles. But, you know, at some point, you don't want that to be, you know, you don't want them to dominate you, you know. So, anyway, so I retracted there. But having those schedules is going to be really important, you know. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. You could even do schedules like social stories, like how to make friends. We're talking about, you know, separation anxiety, like when they go to school. That's a big one, especially when they first start school. That's huge. Or they're going to a different school. That is when a social story really, really is going to help you. And I would, you know, based on the level of anxiety that your child has, the more time you can prepare them, the better. And I would probably, you know, make multiple trips to the school, you know, before they actually start. You know, and not only like just driving up to the school, but see if the school will let you go in, walk the halls, you know, go to his class, meet those teachers, you know, numerous times in order to help them with that anxiety. That's going to be super, super important. Okay, go over 3 slides. One more. There you go. Okay, a token board. A token board is a visual tool that uses tokens to reward behaviors that you want increased and show progress. It's a form of positive reinforcement, which is an evidence-based practice that can help increase the likelihood of a behavior increasing. So this is an example of a token board. So basically what you want to do is, you know, if let's say a child wants a specific toy, and you can start, like this one has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 things the child needs to do before he earns the reward. So basically you allow the child to choose what they want to work for, right? So let's say, you know, it's Saturday morning and, you know, you want your child to make up their bed. But he wants this toy. So what you want to do is you put the picture of the toy in that box, the bigger box, and then you probably just need 1 square and make, you know, picture of a bed and say, when you make up the bed, you get the toy. So they're earning something. The goal is to get them to the point where they don't need a token board, right? They're going to learn how to do that on their own. But this is just any situation, anything that you need them to do, whatever the case may be, you can use a token board and reward them. I wouldn't start off with, you know, 12. I'd start off with 1 and then build. You know, after they do that, you can keep it at that one. I'll do that one next. You can build on it. And so, you know, after they've learned, like, okay, I get this and I got my reward. Okay, well, you know what? Next time, put 2 things. I need you to do this and this. And then you get the reward. And you continue to increase. Because you're mom and dad. So you don't, like, for me, I have to build trust with my kids first. I can't just go in there and say, okay, need you to do this, and then you get this, because they're looking at me like, I don't trust you. I don't know if I'm gonna get it, if you're gonna reward me with it, or if you're gonna give it to me. I have to build that trust. But you guys already have that. So I would, you know, let them know this is where this first thing comes in. You can do a first, then you get the reward. And that's how you start. Then you go to the next board. Then you add a second box and a third box and a fourth box, however many boxes you need. A lot of times the boxes with the most squares or most earnings are like if a child wants candy. Usually that's when, you know, you don't want to reward candy after every single little, you know, chore that you give them. So you want to make sure, like, you're going to work for this candy if you're going to give them candy. So that's where you want to add more boxes. But if it's a simple toy, Again, the reward shouldn't last like all day or hours. I would let them, play for at home 10 minutes. Like my kids, when I do it, they get it for like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe. And then they do the next thing, and then I reward them again. And then they do the next thing. And that's how I keep them going and they get to accomplish more because I'm rewarding them, constantly. But for you guys, if they want to watch a show and it's a 30-minute show, okay, well, you make sure you have to do this, and this to get to watch the show for 30 minutes. But build that in, and you'll see, we're all motivated, right, by something. We work because we want to eat and we want to live in a home. So we're all motivated by that. So are kids. And it's unfair of us to ask them to do something without a reward. We give our kids allowances because we want to teach them, like, you earn. And so our kids are more than capable of learning that system as well. So I would highly, highly encourage that. Okay, this is... okay, go to, I guess, one more. Okay, so this is another simple token board. So here what they did is, instead of writing pictures, you would ask them, this is the star is a reward, and then you would tell them, okay, I need you to do this. Great job. Go put a little star on your board. And then once they fill the board up, again, it's up to you how many little squares you want to put on there. But, make them a part of it. Have them put their own little stars or their own little stickers or whatever so that they feel like they're earning it. But make them part of the process. Okay, the next one. It is very important to celebrate all accomplishments and victories. For some students with special needs, every day is a struggle, and improvements may not come easily. The more you learn about your child's individual challenges, the better you will be able to identify small successes. And when they happen, they're worth celebrating. So again, we want to celebrate when our kids accomplish something. And it doesn't matter how small it is, because the smaller the accomplishment, the next one is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And, who doesn't like to get celebrated when we do something right? When we accomplish something. So our kids are the same way. So celebrate them every chance you get. Especially if you're having kids that have behaviors. The way you're going to shape their behaviors is based on how you're going to respond to those behaviors and how you're going to reward them with it. Because, again, they're motivated by something. You just got to figure out what that motivation is. And for you guys, y'all know, it's us, the teachers and the people that work with them that don't know them very well. We're the ones that need to figure out what that is. But you already know what their motivators are. You already know what those reinforcers are. So use that. Because when a child, tells you or shows you what that is, you have a powerful, powerful tool in your hands. You don't understand how much power you have once that child, lets you know what that motivator is. So use it. Use it to get them, to bring them higher, to teach them, different skills, get them to do their work. Use those tools. Use whatever you have. And you'll see they'll rise to the level that you place on them. Just don't keep it there. Continue to encourage them to learn, foster those skills, foster those, those achievements that you see in your child, foster them because they will. I've seen kids accomplish so much. But the ones that, again, like the mom that's still tying her son's shoes at 9 or 10 years old, I know that child is capable of doing so much more. But he's just not. I mean, he's a child. And he's going to do as little as he possibly can as long as mom is going to get on her hands and knees and tie his shoes. So just use those and just make sure that you do it within reason. Again, don't set the bar so high that it's not achievable. I would rather you start here and bring them up than you start here and they don't accomplish it. So, understand what your child's strengths and weaknesses and work within those, because they will rise to that level. They will definitely rise to that level. How am I doing on time? Okay. You can go to yeah, there you go. Okay, so for those of you that don't know of we have an online Facebook page, a private Facebook page where we offer parents, we have devotionals on there. We have people speaking in on there. So if you're interested in being part of it, go on this hopeformyfamily.com, and we invite you to be part of that community. If for the very least, just to kind of see what other parents are doing. We like to celebrate a lot of families and a lot of parents' accomplishments. We like to do that. And so if that's something you guys want to be a part of it, and share with us, your child's accomplishments, because I think the more we can, spread the word out that, our kids are out there and they're doing a whole lot. They're accomplishing a whole lot. And I don't know if you heard about it, but a few weeks ago I heard of a young lady with Down syndrome that got her law degree. She went to college and got her law degree. So anything is possible, for our kids. Anything is possible. So, I would take advantage of those gifts and talents that you discover. And if you haven't discovered it, go after it, discover it, because there's gifts and there's talents. And it's just a matter of you kind of taking the time, introducing them to different activities and different things that they can do, so that, you can see if there's an interest, if it piques their interest in any way. Last slide. Any questions? We want to open it up to any questions that you may have, that maybe a challenge you're going through, or anything that you may want to know about. I really like to see if I could help you guys in any way. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so first you're asking him, can we do this? Yeah. So when you ask a question, you have to respect their answer. So you don't ask, you tell. We're going to do this. And I think what I just said about identifying a reinforcer. Identify something that he's willing to work for, something that he likes. And then that's what you do. You then go and you're like, okay, you want this, you need to do this. Now, I would, if whoever's going to be working with them and you don't really know him, you need to build that trust, right? So it's most of the time they may not want to do it. So the way I start off with my kids is if I see something, it's a toy or whatever, and they have it, I'm like, oh, I love that toy. I said, can I see it? And then I kind of gently take it from them, and then I give it right back. And then I continue that conversation, and I'm like, oh, can I touch it? And I take it, and then I give it right back. And I do that back and forth, until I'm able to say, okay, my turn, and then they'll give it to me. And as soon as they do that, I'm like, oh, and I give it right back. So build the trust first. Identify the reinforcer, build the trust. Then you go in, okay, guess what? We're going to do this first, and then you get to do this. The moment he does that, you immediately reinforce it. You give them that, whatever he's working for. Again, I wouldn't give it for like 15, 20 minutes. I'd give it like a minute or two, especially if it's schoolwork. But again, then okay, next we need you to do this, and then give it to them. Sometimes my kids, when I first start doing that, they'll just make a line. I'm like, great, he wrote, he picked up his pencil, and he put it to the paper, and he did a line. I'm reinforcing. Because the next step, I'm going to ask them to add another line to it and another line. So I'm building trust, but then I'm also actually getting them to work. But yeah, never ask a question. You give a directive. Yeah.
Norma, we have the QR code on the screen. So if you have any questions, you can just quickly scan the QR code, and then the question comes up here. And then we can read it on the mic so everyone can hear. So go. I have a question, Norma.
Yes.
You spoke about meltdowns. And is there any quick tips how to regulate someone out of a meltdown?
Well, first, you want to, if you know what's causing the meltdown, that's the first thing. Do you know ABA? Okay. So the first thing is identify what's causing it. It's what is called the antecedent, right? Identify what's causing the meltdown. If you can identify it, great. Then you have the ability to control it, if possible. I've had kids that, the lights bother them. Well, I can't really control that. Or sound, right. They can hear, like, the screen back here. You guys don't hear it. I hear it. But that would probably bother some kids. If you can identify it and kind of work within that, that's going to be ideal. If a child is in full meltdown, the first thing, which is really hard, is you got to ignore the behavior. You have to ignore the behavior. Here's the thing. You want to give attention to the behavior you want increased. Okay? You want to give attention to the behavior you want increased. Okay? I know it's hard. I've had kids run out of my classroom. I cannot ignore that. I've had kids take off their clothes. I cannot ignore that. But you can still address a behavior without giving eye contact or speaking. Okay? So, for instance, my little girl who we later found out is she wasn't being engaged enough. So anytime she wasn't engaged, I wanted to take off her clothes. So here I am. I'm literally keeping her shirt down, never giving her eye contact. I never addressed her taking off her clothes. I'm literally keeping her shirt down, and then I turn around and I tell the little boy next to me, like, oh, great job keeping your shirt on. I love the way you're keeping your shirt on. You're doing awesome. The moment she realized that the attention I was supposed to be giving her, I was giving it to him, guess what? Her shirt went down. Then I turned around like, oh, I love the way you're keeping your shirt down. Great job. And every time I would do that, I kept reinforcing her keeping her clothes on. She would not take it off. But the moment I would turn around or she wasn't being engaged, she went back at it again. So it's, identifying what it is. Hers, it was attention seeking. So identify what that is. But that's what you want to do, is try to prevent it. But if you can't, then, again, with my runner, like, he ran out because I know it was a game. He knew I was going to go after him. And when I went after him, he was laughing. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. I brought him back. I did not say a word to him. I didn't give him any eye contact whatsoever. Then I started like going over the top playing with the other kids because they were staying in the room. Well, he wanted to be a part of that. So then I'm like, okay, we're going to play because we're all going to stay in the room. Never once did I say, do not run outside. We cannot go. I never addressed him or the behavior, but I reinforced everybody else. So again, if it's just a meltdown, you got to ignore it. The moment they calm down, then you go and you reinforce. Because if you go when they're, and if it's attention seeking, and you go and you address it, they're like, this is what I got to do to get mom's attention or dad's attention. I just got to scream, and she comes running. It's hard. It's a paradigm shift. Like, it's not something we're used to. And even me as a parent, I rarely, and I feel so bad, like I rarely, gave praise to my child when he was doing something right. It was always, don't do this, don't go out there, don't touch that, and it's a wonder our kids grow up, great, because I don't ever remember, other than him accomplishing something, but the day-to-day, I don't remember like, oh, I love the way you're doing this, great job. It was always, don't touch that, don't go out there, that's hot, don't do that. So, so reinforce when they're doing something good, constantly. You're doing a great job when you get tired of hearing yourself say that. That's when you're doing what you're supposed to do. So if you constantly reinforce them as they're doing good at whatever they're doing, I love the way you're saying, great job. Good job putting your clothes on. Good job doing this. Like, constantly do that. There's not going to be any need for them to have a meltdown. Because again, 9 out of 10 times it's, not 9 out of 10, but a lot of times it's attention seeking. But if it's an item they want, then make them work for it. And yes, maybe they don't want to work for it. Well, you're just going to have to stick to your guns, and you're just going to, like, whenever you're done and you finish this, you're going to get it. But never like, oh, you're throwing a fit. It's like, okay, it's right here whenever you're ready, because you want to make sure that they understand that you're not taking it away from them. They're making the choice not to earn it.
That's good.
So that's key.
Yeah. So the following question kind of adds on to that. How do you distinguish between a child simply being rebellious versus acting within the framework of his or her disability?
Okay, so acting within the framework of their disability. So I don't know of any disability that a meltdown would be part of. So obviously, within the limitation of the child, right? I mean, if the child is struggling to do something, then you want to help. You know what I mean? If they're crying because they can't do something, that's something within their disability. But if they're having a meltdown because they simply can't get what they want, that's completely different. That has really nothing to do with a disability. That's a child trying to manipulate you into getting what they want. And they're smart enough to do that. I can tell you that. So really, it just really depends on what it is. If they are, if a child is struggling and he's crying because he can't reach something because he's got a physical disability, that's not really a meltdown. But if they want something, they need to earn it. And they need to be taught that that's the process. They need to earn that.
Okay, so here are 2 questions relating church. Single mom asking, how do I navigate my child not wanting to attend Sunday school without me, but the church not wanting me to join the class? I hope that's not our church.
Well, honestly,
and then having a meltdown at the church. And then another question saying, how do I get my child to accept Christ at church, or how do they accept Christ in the classrooms?
Okay. So as far as mom, whoever you are, you really need to go to church. You really shouldn't be with your child. You need your time too. And you need your time in here. You need your time in here. You need your time with Jesus. You need your time to separate. If the child is crying, I've never heard of anything going wrong with a child crying, right? Unfortunately, I've had, very rarely, but I've had kids, that they get dropped off and they're crying. Usually my parents are like, here you go, goodbye. They're like, they'll be fine. But I've had some parents that are like, oh, if he cries, I'm like, okay, how long do you want him to cry before I call you? Because I'm not going to call you. My goal is I want my parents to be healthy too. And the only way they can be healthy is if I get to do my job in the back and they get to come in here. So Mom, I would definitely encourage, it's okay if they cry. It's okay. They're needing to adapt to a new environment. But if you are constantly in that environment, they're never going to be able to adapt. So they will be fine. I have a little boy. Aiden is probably 6. He's been coming to us for about 2 years, but he's not consistent. Mom would bring him like 2 weeks and then he's gone 4 weeks. And so I feel, and I know some of those times he's sick, and I feel really bad because it's like I finally get him to where he comes in, he walks, he's fine, and then he's gone for 3 or 4 weeks, and then he comes back, and guess what? It's the crying again. But what I've noticed is the crying doesn't last as long. Like in the beginning, like the first time he cried, probably the entire service, but Mom said, it's okay, it'll be fine. I said, okay, so we just did. I mean, and for him, there wasn't a behavior, it was just crying, and I get it. It was a new environment. These kids, it's brand new. They don't know us. They don't know what the expectation is. They don't know what they're going to be asked to do. And so for him, it was just crying. So we just kind of like, we dealt with it until it will get better. It will get better, but you have to be consistent. And the first time, it is going to be hard. You're going to leave your child crying, but there's nothing going to happen from that. And as long as the teachers are patient and just let the teachers know, like, I know he's going to cry, but he'll be fine. Again, but you want to let the child know, too. Again, maybe creating a social story for him is going to be the best. Like, next week we're going to go to church. You're going to go into little church. Mommy's going to go into big church. Then Mommy's going to come pick you up at this time. Whatever level of understanding the child's at. But explain, because, I think about, too, like even our littles, our 2 and 3 year olds, what do? We take them to church. We walk them into a classroom. We turn around and we leave. Do we ever tell them we're coming back? Do we ever tell them anything? We don't. It's a wonder these kids are crying. They don't know. They've been left with strangers with no communication whatsoever, and we wonder why they're crying. Well, because they don't know. So the same thing with our kids. Like, let them know Mommy is coming back, and if you want to leave them a watch or tell your teachers, hey, show them this. This is what time Mommy's coming. Whatever you can do to help them understand. But I promise it'll get better. Like, you just got to be consistent, but do not go in the classroom. I would not recommend that at all. And then what was the other one?
How do you get the kids to accept Christ as their Savior in classrooms?
Okay, so the word get is kind of a scary word for me. We do all we can do in the natural, right? And God does the rest. If you have a child that's not verbal, he's never going to be able to tell you, I accept Jesus. You just do what you do. There's many ways you can do it, though. If you want to, you can do visuals. Show a picture of Jesus. We have Jesus in our heart. This is how we get, Jesus in our heart. You can do a declaration, a salvation prayer or whatever, and read it to the child and see if the child understands it. There's a lot of things you can do, but at the end of the day, unless a child is verbal and says it, there's really no guarantee. But what we do is we trust in God that He's going to do His part. Like, we're going to do our part. We're going to impart the seed. We're going to be Jesus' hands and feet. We're going to be, God in a tangible sense. And that's how they're going to know who Jesus is, because, we are His extension. So you just have to kind of do your part, and then God takes care of the rest. Now, as a mom, if it's something that you want, something tangible, you can have them, you would just have to break it down for them based on what level they're at. What does that mean? But a lot of times it's hard to explain to a child who God is because they can't see Him. I mean, you can show them a picture of Jesus, but He's still a picture. He's not a person. And so you just kind of do what you can, especially depending on the age of the child. Once they get older, then I guess the language is different, and they have a better understanding of who Jesus is, and better understanding when you explain it to them. So I hope that makes sense.
Yes, I just want to add, that's why you need to come to Fire Kids or a Champions Club, because there we will help the children in a very practical way how to accept Christ. We have pictures, we have stories, we have object lessons. So you just need to bring them, and that consistency is very important. So here's a question. How can we work on our marriage while having our hands full?
Yeah. So, one, come to church. Go to a church that will accept your child. I think that's key. You know, when I first started in our ministry, I honestly, the majority of my families were single parent homes, single moms, the majority. I can now say that I could probably count the number of single moms in one hand. But it's because we provided a place. Like, we provided a place for their children, and that gave them the opportunity to go into service as a family together. Because most of the time what happens is one parent would stay at home, and they would take turns. So they were never able to come to church together. So once we kind of, opened that up and allowed them, it became stronger. Second part, I would say, is, gather a team around you, a support team, a support group. Be part of a support group. Again, like I was saying earlier, bring people around you that know your child and have them babysit for you. Even if it's an hour to go to dinner or, go to the grocery store. One of the things that we do, and it's something that would, once you guys get started, be a great idea, is we have our respite nights. And so what we do on our respite nights is we only do it once a quarter, but we allow the parents to drop off their kids, all of their kids. That means siblings as well. And they drop them off on a Friday at 6 p.m. and they come back and pick them up at 11 p.m. So they get to go out and have whatever they want to do. I've had parents, I've had like one mom, her husband was out of town, and she literally went into the parking garage and slept. She slept because she hadn't been able to sleep. I had one mom go grocery shopping. Another one went to do laundry, because they don't get that opportunity. But, the term, it says it takes a village, right, to raise a child. Create your village. Even if it's, like I said, even if it's an hour, go take a walk around the park, whatever you can get in there. But work toward that, because, divorce rates amongst families who have, children with special needs is outrageous. It is outrageous. So, yes, your child is very, very important, but so is your marriage. So is your marriage. Work at your marriage. Make the time for it. And I know, it's tiring. You're tired because of, you work, you have your child, you have other responsibilities. But make time for it. Make time for it. And again, surround yourself with a few people that will come in. Again, an hour makes a big difference just to get out. That makes a huge difference. But you got to build that village of people you can trust, and people that are, willing to come in and support you.
Okay, then they ask, how do you transition out of the reward phase if the children gets used to it, that they expect it every time? Is there an age or a time that you phase out?
Once they've pretty much mastered it, I don't believe that they should never be rewarded. We get rewarded, right? We get rewarded all the time. There's no reason why they shouldn't get rewarded. What needs to change is how often they get rewarded. That's what needs to change. Not whether they get rewarded or not. You don't want to have to reward them every 5 minutes. You want to work it so that they don't have to get rewarded as often. And so that's kind of the goal is, when you start it, as they grasp what you're trying to teach them, and as they grasp the schedule and what they need to do, then you start stretching those rewards out. And instead of, doing, 3 things, now they got to do 6 things, and then they get the reward. Sometimes it could be, what you don't want is for it to be a reward that you can't maintain. Okay, so it can't be a reward like, once you finish this, we're going to get to go eat pizza, because then you're going to have pizza every single day. So you don't, you want to make sure it's a reward that you can maintain. And if let's say, they love pizza, okay, well, you know what? If you do all of this on Friday, we get to go have pizza. You can do that. But make sure it's something you can maintain, and then stretch it out so that they don't have to get rewarded as often. But there's nothing wrong with getting rewarded. Yes. Oh, yeah.
For the recording.
You don't have to get up here.
I have come to notice in my practice that as the children get older, they literally come and bargain themselves. Like they will come and they would set a goal for themselves and then tell you, okay, I'm going to work, I'm going to do this, can I then get that? Which I also think is amazing, because that's also helping them to set realistic goals, helping them with that processing at the end of the day. So, but that starts to happen here at 12 years old, almost, not before that.
Exactly, yeah. No, for sure, like what she was saying is like they start understanding the whole reward system, and then they start including other things that they want to do to earn the reward. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, so here's a question. This person says, I have Asperger's, yes, and I want to know how do you tell your parents you're having a bad day and you just want them to listen instead of trying to give solutions?
Oh. So Asperger's is just a higher, it's still autism, but they're very, very high functioning, like very high functioning. Usually they struggle in social situations. So yeah, that's a hard one, because as a parent, we are we're here to protect, and we're here to make sure you're okay, and make sure, and a lot of times, giving our kids space can be kind of scary, because we don't know what's going on in your heads, right? And too much space can also be a little dangerous. But I would probably just sit down with mom and dad and maybe come up with a plan and say, you know what, Mom, on these days from this time to this time, I just kind of want to be in my room by myself. Or whatever you feel you need. It's just, parents just don't want you to isolate yourselves. That's the key. I know that, you need a break, because it's too much. You guys are taking in way too much information, and you need an output. So having that space alone is probably what you need to kind of regulate. And so I would just sit down with mom and dad and just come up and help them understand you, and just tell them, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to see if from this time to this time, if I could just, be in my room by myself, and see how that works, and just kind of, work that in there. But again, for a parent, it can't be 6 or 8 hours. It can't be an entire day, because then that worries us. So work it in. If you need it more often, maybe you can do 2 hours in the afternoon, and depending on how old you are, if you're going to school, Mom, after homework, can I have this time? Or on Saturday morning, can I have this time? But I would definitely talk to your parents and just have a sit down with them, and just tell them, like, I really want to talk to you about something that's really important to me, and I want you to understand. But help them understand where you're at. Help them understand what you're feeling. Help them understand why you need this break. Because a lot of times parents don't know. They don't know what you're feeling. And it's already hard enough when teenagers don't speak to you, and you don't know what they're thinking, and then you add something like this, it's even harder. And we become protectors. And then we're like, oh, our kids are isolating themselves. What's going on? What are they thinking? What are they doing? But if you sit down and you talk to your parents and you let them know, this is what I need, and this is what I'd like to have. If you could just please give me this time to be alone, and hopefully they'll have an understanding. But talk to them about how you're feeling and tell them why that is going to help you. Let them know how that is going to help you so that they can at least see that, this is the best for you and this is what you want to try. So I hope that helped.
Yes. So now there's a question, how do you handle hate speech?
Yeah.
Would that be similar to attention seeking and ignore the behavior? Because I know hate speech can be connected to Tourette's, for example. That is like a part of the diagnosis.
That's completely different. If it's Tourette's, that's kind of hard. That is completely different. But if it's a child that's having a meltdown and they're doing it to get your attention, especially if you've already given the attention to it. They've trained you basically. So you have to ignore it. You're just going to have to ignore it. Trust me, they'll get tired. They will get tired when they don't get a reaction out of you. They will get tired. So yes, if you see that it is more of the attention seeking, you're going to have to ignore it, unfortunately. But then, again, you want to reward when they stop. The minute they stop, then you turn around and you just like, hey, let's talk or whatever. Again, ignore what they're saying, ignore that whole situation and start almost like a whole new conversation with them with something different. The moment they start back up, okay, conversation's over, you walk off, you turn their back, no eye contact, no, nothing. Until they start understanding that, that's not what you're going to respond to.
There's a question saying, are there any trusted resources you can recommend that is not overly medical that can help us on this parenting journey? So I'm not sure if it's like medication-wise. Is there resources that can help that is not overly medical?
Well, that's, I've heard a lot of different things from my parents, from, doing like gluten-free, plant-based, not allowing so much sugar. We have a Champions Club in Pretoria, and they actually have, which is amazing, is they have a hyperbaric chamber in their Champions Club. And they have their kids go in there, and that actually helps them. So I would say just try different things. Just try. I would start with one thing, remove gluten for, a few months to see if you see any changes, or, remove the different things that they're consuming and see if that changes. I would first start with their diet, because a lot of times it's that. I've heard parents do like cleanses, do a cleanse to kind of detoxify them. That I've heard that sometimes can help, but that's basically what I've gotten from my parents. Is more toward their eating habits and the detox, and then kind of introducing them to different types of more like gluten-free or plant-based foods.
Okay, how do you get a highly functioned autism child to not get involved in fights at school? He is in a mainstream school, but kids are noticing that he's different and do not understand social cues.
Yeah, the kids don't, or he doesn't? He doesn't.
I think the kids notice he's different and do not understand social cues, making use of it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the kids don't understand his social cues, and maybe vice versa.
That's what's really hard. Gosh, the things that happen in schools now is just really crazy. I really wish that schools would do more sensitivity, and awareness training. But I know that's tough. I think, for your child, what's going to have to be, you're just going to have to tell them just to walk away. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it engaging them, because honestly, it's the same thing with them. If you give attention to them, guess what they're going to do? They're going to continue that behavior. So eventually they'll get bored. I would, talk to school officials. That's going to be important too. Get the school involved. your principals or whoever the people are in the school, the teachers, whoever it's in the school, talk to them about it and let them know, like, this is happening and it's your responsibility to ensure the safety of my child, and this is what's happening while he's under your watch. So make them aware of it. Let them know this is what's happening. And maybe, if it's certain kids during a certain time, well, maybe there needs to be a schedule change for your son, so that he doesn't have to come in contact with the kids. Like, when is it happening? Who's around? Is there someone that can be there during the time that's happening that can actually protect them? But I would definitely get the school involved, because it's their responsibility to make sure that everybody is safe. Now, we understand kids play around, but this is kind of crossing the line, in a lot of ways. So definitely get the school involved.
Okay. How do I help a sibling understand an autistic child?
Oh, yeah, that is so hard. Oh, and it also depends on the age, because littles, you start small, right? You start explaining, brother is different and brother's going to do something different, or, that's pretty simple. It's when they start getting older. That's when, once they hit puberty, that's when it really becomes harder. Like, because, all of their life, brother has been receiving all the attention, and then now you want me to be part of that, and you want me to now give my time. So it's really hard. I think what's going to be important is that you make time for the sibling. Like, in one way, shape, or form, you need to carve out time to spend with that sibling alone, without the child, without your child with special needs, because they deserve that time. And so if you give them that time, even if it's, an hour, every couple of days, whatever works for you, but give them your special and individual time, because they're going to need that. They've been so wrapped up in the sibling and everything and all the needs and everything that's happened that, they're overwhelmed too. Our kids take up all of our problems and all of our emotions, everything that goes on in the house. Our kids are absorbing that. And so then they hit puberty, and guess what? They don't know what to do with all that information. They don't know what to do with everything that's going on. So take time to spend with them. Make it, be intentional about it. And even, like I said, even if it's an hour or whatever, but make it just about them, and you're only talking about them and their interests and what they're doing and what they want to do. Make it about them and make them a priority. So that they don't feel like left out, and they don't feel like, okay, this is all you want me for. And I'll give you an example. I had a parent that she was a single mom, and she had 4 kids. 2 are on the spectrum. She had an older son, 2 on the spectrum, and another younger son. And so she relied so much on her older son, like, for everything. I mean, I felt like he was more of a father-husband type of support for her. And the minute he turned 18, he was gone. He was out. He was just so tired. He was so tired of being that caregiver and all the attention going to the boys. And I get it. She's a single mom. She really didn't have a lot of support, and she really leaned in on him. But this is what can happen. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you make them part of the process, a part of the celebration, part of everything they're doing, and not make them a caregiver. I think that's the important thing, is don't make them the primary caregiver, and take time to spend with them by themselves.
Okay. I think we are almost done with our time, so I'm going to try and get through the ones I still have here. So please don't send me more, because they're just rolling in now, which is amazing. We can also maybe see if we can get these questions to you later, and maybe get some questions and answers and email that out
Absolutely.
to you as well. So if we don't get through everything, we'll maybe make a plan like that. So these two questions combined. How do I know my child is autistic is the first one. And the second one is, how can I protect my child from the stigma of not getting hurt because they are autistic?
Yeah. Okay, so there's that saying that if you've seen a child with autism, you've only seen one child with autism, because they're all so individual. They're all so different. That you will never find two kids that have the same exact characteristics. You just won't. But some, especially if they're younger, some of the things, and you can probably help me with this as well, is, they don't really give you eye contact. They don't respond to their name. They're probably not the speech. Yeah, their speech is delayed. Potty trained. They probably won't go to the bathroom on their own. And then yes, everything stops. Yeah. Yes, and that's actually what happened to my pastor's. His son, up to the age of 2, actually talked and was a typical child. And then literally after that, everything stopped. No more showing emotion, no more speaking, no more progressing in anything, honestly. And so, but if it's a child that, like we're talking about, like develop, normally, or met all the milestones that a typical child does. I hate to use the word normal because none of us are. But developed all the milestones that a typical child would, and then you see the regression, then yeah, there's probably something going on. I know right now they're diagnosing kids up to the age, it's starting 12, 18 months. It's kind of hard for me because when we don't start taking kids in till they're 4. But I know that prior to that, especially as a 2 and 3 years old, if they're not developing, and meeting those milestones, those are going to definitely be, cues. If it's your only child, it may be a little bit harder because you don't really have nothing to compare it to. And if you have other children, then you can kind of, kids pretty much develop kind of the same. You may have some that have delayed speech, but other than that, they're probably pretty much on task. But if you see your child that, again, like Connor, he would play with everybody, and then all of a sudden he was off in the corner playing by himself. He wouldn't respond to his name anymore, and all of those things. There, you will see it. And then a lot of times the doctors will diagnose it. Yeah.
80% of my clients and the school that I work at, parents come in and they say, yes, my child packs everything like this.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. If your kids like to see things spin, like tires on a car, or they line everything up, or if you move something, they have a fit because it's been moved. If they like things in a specific order, yeah, those are probably some strong indicators that there's something there. Yeah.
Okay, then this mom's asking, how do I explain to my neurotypical child about their diagnosis?
Yeah, so again, I would just, one is, like what I like to say is we're all different, right? We all look different. We all act different. We all like different things. So yes, so that's one of the things. Yeah, we're all different. But you know what, brother or sister, he needs a little extra help because of this. And as they get older, you can start talking about what autism is and, how their behaviors, they cannot control a lot of the things because of the fact that, the information they're receiving, like you and I receive, millions of from our senses. The body or the brain receives a lot of the information from our environment. Gets to the brain, then the brain tells the body what to do. Something happens up here. Something happens when they receive the information, it doesn't communicate to the body effectively how the child should act. So it's not their fault. So I would just, in the simplest terms, just, explain to the sibling, like, this is, it's different and we're going to do things different. Make them part of the process. Again, don't, make them part of what you do, but don't place a lot of responsibilities on them. I think that's the hard part for siblings, is they get drawn into that and then they start resenting that. So, make them part of the celebrating and make them part of what you're doing, but don't, place so much responsibility on them.
One time we explained in our, I think it was grade 1 and 2 class, that the one boy needed to play with Lego during the class. And we explained to the rest of the class, this helps him to concentrate. So if he continues to play with this, like your glasses that you're wearing helps you to see more clearly. So like you need your glasses to see better, he needs to fiddle with this to concentrate. So that was something practical that came out in one of our classes. It was quite beneficial.
Yeah, and I mean, that's excellent.
Okay, here's a mom saying, any practical tips for regaining my mental health without letting my child go?
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, taking care of yourself is number one, because, your family's depending on you. And I know, and unfortunately for moms, we put ourselves last on the list because there's priorities, right? Everything else is a priority but us. But honestly, you're the priority, because if you go down, what is going to happen? Your family, your children, your child depends on you. So you need to figure out what's going to work best for you. What's going to help you? Do you need just a walk outside, an hour a day or every other day? What is it that you need? And you work toward it. Make it a priority. Be intentional about it. Formulate a plan. Get people involved. Form your circle of support, and make them part of the process, and let them know, I just need an hour, and start small. I'm not saying go out and take a vacation and, leave your child behind. Start small, take an hour out of your day and just do whatever you like to do. So that you can come back and get refreshed. An hour is not a lot. And you'll see the difference that it'll make. But make yourself a priority. You have to be intentional about it. You have to. You're going to have to make time. And you know what? We make time for the things that are important to us. The problem is that you don't feel you're that important. And you are detrimental. Because if you remove yourself out of the equation, what does that leave you? What is that going to leave your family? So you have to make yourself the priority. In whatever you do, whatever makes you happy, whatever is going to help you, you need to formulate a plan to get there for the sake not only of yourself, but your family. And, regardless of what anybody says, you have to make yourself the priority.
Here's another one. How do I get over the fear of people judging me, knowing that I'm different?
We cannot live by what other people think of us. We just can't. We're not going to be able to make everybody happy, ever. Not even us, neurotypical, nobody. And you need to stop allowing other people's opinions or definitions or whatever to define you. God made you unique for a reason. In God, you just need to tell yourself you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And you are you because of that's who God created. God created you to be you. And you need to just stop worrying about what the world says, because the world's going to always talk about you. They're always going to say things about you. And they're just not that important. At the end of the day, they're just not that important. You should not allow them to define who you are. Never, never. And that's for all of us, me included. You know, we should not be defined by people's opinions of us or what they think or what they expect us to do. You know, we live our own lives. And as long as, you know, I wake up in the morning and I do what I need to do and I know who I am and I know, you know, who my God is and I know that I have a relationship with him, that's all that matters. Everybody else is secondary. So again, just like I'm telling that mom, you need to make yourself the priority and not worry about what people say, because they're going to talk anyway. It doesn't matter. They're going to talk about, you know, how you dress, and I'm talking about all of us, right? Because we do it. We go out and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's wearing that. Or that really doesn't look good, you know. It's going to happen. It happens anyway. So stop focusing on what people say. And you know what? And just read about what God says about you, because that's the only thing that's important.
Okay, I'm going to try and do 3 questions in 5 minutes,
Okay.
and then we're done.
Okay, I'll try to be quick.
And then we can wrap it up. Okay, so my child is ADD, semi-verbal, but he wanders off a lot. Any tips to help him stop this behavior?
Okay, so the ADHD, and he's ADD, yeah. It's ADHD now. They don't really have ADD anymore. I don't know why.
Semi-verbal.
And semi-verbal. Okay, so the wondering, is it, I guess you just kind of have to identify, like, when does he wonder? Where does he wander to? Is it all the time? Is it just a specific time? Again, identifying what's causing that behavior. That's going to be the key. Identifying when it happens, and then you can probably get to the why it happens, so that then you can kind of control. But yeah, again, it's a behavior you kind of have to ignore. But again, put safety measures in place so that it doesn't happen. Whether it's, you know, again, since I don't kind of know the full story, it's, you know, is the, you know, are the doors being left unlocked and open, or can he reach the locks? Okay, well then maybe you need to set a different lock. I had one parent that her son would wake up in the middle of the night and leave, walk out the door. So what she did is she installed these crazy alarms that just went off. He did that one time and ran right back in and never walked out again because it scared him. And it was so loud. So it's just kind of coming up with things like, first of all, identifying why he's doing it. And is there a specific time? Where's he going? Or is he just he's just kind of wandering off? Then put in those safety measures so that, you know, again, extra locks on your doors or whatever you have to do to kind of keep them safe. Another thing that we recently found out, one of my parents actually got an ankle monitor for her son so that she can track him, you know, and it's peace of mind for our parents. I mean, I know it sounds awful, you know, but hey, I'd rather have an ankle monitor than my child disappear and I have no idea where he's at. Because then, you know, if he wanders off, she's got a GPS and knows exactly where he's at. So, and he's not verbal, so he's not able to communicate what his name is, who his mom is, or anything. You know, she tried putting bracelets. He would take them off. Necklace, he would take them off. She would put stuff like sew things in his clothing, and he didn't like the way it felt on him. So I feel like she went through every possible thing she could to figure out how to, like, keep him safe. And so finally she just did the monitor. And it's a small little one. Like, you can't, you know, it hides underneath the sock, so you can't really see it. But that gave her such peace of mind, you know, that if something does happen to him, I know immediately where he's at, instead of trying to wonder. And, you know, by the time you get people to come out and help you and call the police and all, who knows what could happen. So, but yeah, just kind of think of those safety measures.
Okay, so just wrapping up, the one parent asked, is it okay to be extremely firm in the parenting with boundaries, or should we take a softer approach? And then the other parent said They have 2 kids, one with Asperger's, one with possible ASD and other diagnoses. So how do you treat them different in reward systems without them feeling the one is being preferenced above the other one, because what works for the one doesn't work for the other one?
Yeah. So first one, firm and boundaries, definitely. You start off that way, and then as they gain your trust, then you can kind of let up. But definitely firm and boundaries, very important. And then the second one, 2 different diagnoses, and how do you do the reward? Well, obviously, your higher functioning child, you want to explain why you're doing it for your other child. But again, still rewarding, he's still going to get the reward. It's going to be different for him, and just explain the difference. And when they're going to get the reward, and also based on what the task is. If he's expected to pick up something from the floor, but this other one has to do all of this to get the reward, you know what I mean? It's like it's relative. So I would say communication. Communication is always going to be the important thing. Make sure that you are effectively communicating what your expectation is. Because if you don't effectively communicate, we cannot assume that they know what the expectation is. And a lot of times we just think like, oh yeah, they'll know what to do. Well, if you haven't told them or showed them, most of the time they're not going to be able to do it. So the effective communication on your part is going to be the biggest thing.
Okay, just the last one. Do you ever introduce the special needs kids into the mainstream classes again?
Yep, absolutely. That's the goal. The goal's always going to be to have some sort of inclusivity. Whether, and I know a lot of times if kids have a lot of behaviors, you want to work with the behaviors, kind of get that under control before you kind of, even if you do it on a, they go in for a little bit and come back out, or go in for a certain portion and come back out. But, again, the more they can observe appropriate behavior, the bigger the benefit for them. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm glad we got I hope we got through all of the questions. But thank you so much for your expertise and your experience, and I'm very excited about tomorrow. Can't wait.
Yes.
We want to end today just with showing you the areas of people that's attending the conference. So I know not everyone on the board will be here tonight, but we wanted to give you opportunity to just maybe connect with someone in your area, maybe a parent in your area that you're not aware of, that you can maybe swap numbers with or connect with them, and then start building that support group. So you can put the slide up about the different areas. So there's people from Worcester, there's people from Paul, Stellenbosch. We have a lot of people from Sea Point, Cape Town, Milnerton, Durbanville, obviously. A lot of people from Durbanville, Belleville, Parow, and then Pinehurst, Uitzig, and then Kraaifontein, Brackenfell. So there's people from everywhere. I know there's people joining us tomorrow from Piketberg. There's someone from Randburg. Someone here today from Randburg, or they're coming tomorrow. That's amazing. That's in Gauteng, where you came from yesterday. Wow. So I don't know how they got here, but we're so glad. So if we can maybe just make, we have about 15, 20 minutes left. If you are a parent and you have the need to connect up with someone in your area, I want us just to give you opportunity for that. If you are here and you're a volunteer, that's fine if you don't need that connection. But I really don't want to leave before we give you that opportunity to connect. And then we just want to end off after that with a time of ministry. So if you want to come out and get some prayer, we would like to pray with you. We were supposed to go on Table Mountain, and we were there. We were halfway there, but getting there was so stressful because my GPS lost connection a few times, and we put in the wrong address in the beginning, so it took us to a different part of Table Mountain. You have to press in Table Mountain cable car. I didn't know that. So now we're driving in the car in the city. It's crazy, losing connection, and the anxiety you feel from driving on a road you don't know. No one's stopping. Life's going very quickly. And the moment that GPS disconnects, and you're on the N1 or in somewhere, that panic just hits you. And I know that's sometimes how you feel as a parent. You're on this road, you've never driven this, you don't have a manual how to do this, and sometimes you lose connection with God. You feel like you lose connection with God. He's always connected, but we feel we lose connection. Sometimes you lose connection with your friends, your family, and then the road going to Table Mountain, the goal you want for your child, having a great family memory, and then you get there and then they say, sorry, the winds are too bad, it's closed now, and then you have disappointment. So that was such a good analogy for me today about having kids that need special attention, because it's a drain on you as parents. You are driving the car, you're trying to get your kids to a safe space, you're trying to create awesome memories with them and not freaking out in the process. So please, let's connect. Let's link up. So can we say, as it's there on the board, we'll do Brackenfell, Kraaifontein in this area, and then Durbanville at the back, and then in front Pinehurst, Uitzig, at the back, Cape Town, Sea Point, Milnerton, and then Belleville, Parow in front here, and then at the back, Paul, Worcester, you and Stellenbosch, you are a little bit way out of each other, but we grouped you together because you're not alone. So let's get in that groups, and then you are welcome to exchange numbers. And then in this time, if you can put up some music, we'd just like to end off with some ministry. Please feel free to come out for prayer or exchange numbers, and then you are free to go. And then we'll see you tomorrow morning from 8:30, then to begin on the dot 9 o'clock. Anything you want to end off with? Yes, can we please end off with a video, and then we can go into the small groups, and then if you have to leave, you can leave. If you can connect, please connect. Okay, so we want to show a video that happened a few years ago at Lakewood.
Yes, I think so. Every year at Lakewood, we have a resource and job fair for our families, meaning we identify local resources that provide some sort of service or some sort of product for the community, for our families, and we invite the community out. And then on Sunday, we always kind of do like a special program to really bring more awareness to our congregation for our families. So I'm not sure which one we're showing, but this is one of the ones that we did. And when you start, you'll see people come on stage, and those are our families. Those are our families that come out, and you know, at first, some of them were a little apprehensive about coming out and people seeing them. But now, you know, we do this every year now, and every single one of my parents participates. So this is just kind of one of them, of one of the specials that we did. I hope you enjoy it.
Sure. Not a dry eye in the house. Okay, so parents that want to connect, I don't know if it's going to be easier just to come forward. If you can put that up again, and then if you need prayer, please come out. I think we all need prayer, but can you see how special they are? And can you see how special you are? That God entrusts you with, thank you, Father, that you have made us wonderfully and beautifully. Thank you that you have made each one different, unique, special. Thank you that you look with us with your eyes, full of love, full of acceptance, full of purpose, full of destiny. And you don't see us the way we think you see us. And you don't see us the way we think the world sees us. So I ask every person represented here today, if they are a parent or if they are someone that is struggling with this in their own body, I pray, Holy Spirit, that you would open our eyes to see us the way you see us, and allow us, give us the ability to use those eyes to look at other people in the same way. Thank you that you restore hearts. that you restore energy, that you restore hope, that you restore vision, that you restore joy and peace in each family represented. And thank you, Lord, that you will link up people and that great friendships will